Okay, so let's plop in a cube into our scene, all right? And also make sure if you don't see any of the lines, go ahead and go up to display and just hit the second one, which is the grid shading lines, so you can see the lines. Now what we want to do with this is we want to subdivide the cube into at least 3 different segments per side. And the way that you do that is down in the Attributes Manager, you have segments X, Y, and Z. Just change those to 3 to begin with here. So 3, 3, 3. Okay, hit return, and then you can see what's happening. We've turned this now into like a Rubik's Cube form, where we have lines that subdivide that basic cube shape. Okay. Now these lines are important because if we when it's a primitive form, we first bring this in, we can't really manipulate those. So what we need to do with any primitive model is we need to make it editable. Okay, there's a couple ways to do that. One is this little button up here that shows you like this primitive yellow shape turning into this globe shape with lots of polygons. You just click that button, it will make this object editable. Okay, the other thing you can do is you can hit the C key, which will also allow you to do that as well. So if you just hit the C button, it will turn that cube. Notice what happens to it in the Objects Manager. It changes from this cube form. Then when I hit the C key, it looks like a polygon, right? It looks like a triangle with points on it. Okay, that lets you know that it's editable and you can start to manipulate it. Now, in order to do that, we have to move it from this object button right here. The object mode allows you to move this around just as the whole object, right? But if we want to, we can start to move between the points, the edges, and the polygons. Okay. And if you scroll down here, you can see the first one is points. If you click on this, you can see that we get that halo disappears, and suddenly we see these little dots, these are the points that make up the object. Okay, and that's part of the reason why we turned it into more segments, or we subdivided it into more segments. So we have more points that we can manipulate in the object. The next one, as you go down, are the edges, which if you scroll over this, you can see that the edges become highlighted, and that allows you to manipulate the object even farther too. You can move, you can change, you can manipulate those edges. And then finally, the polygon tool, which as you scroll over, you can see that we can manipulate any of those polygon forms. Okay, so this becomes really powerful in sort of sculpting, if you will, kind of modeling, pushing around things, changing it from a cube form into a multiple faceted object. So let's start out with that. Let's go just click on the points tool. We'll start with some points, and what we want to do with this is we also want to grab a selection tool. Okay, so next to the move tool to the left of it, we have a selection tool. So if you click on this, the first one is called a live selection tool, which is literally you click and grab and you can select as many points as you want, right? So if I click and hold this down, whoops, if I click and hold this down, you see I can select those points and they become highlighted. All right, so that's that's a great way that you can select an area. So if I select these things, I could move this up a little bit, and you see that the whole model changes because it's just moving those points. All the other ones are staying still, but those points are moving up and down in space. Okay, so that becomes really a really great way to start to use these things. You can select points with the live selection tool. If you don't want those points selected, you can click another point and it will become highlighted as well. If you hold down the Shift key, you can select multiple points in a group. Okay, so if I just let's just go through and select all the corner points, for example, all these corners all the way around, and then of course we're going to need to move the model a little bit. So you can lift up on the Shift key. You can move the model around to the other side, okay, and then you can select these guys in the back too. Again, hit the Shift key and grab those points right there. And now we have all the corners have been selected, all right? And what we can do here is now we can manipulate just that form. So if I want this to be like a star shape of some sort, or some sort of thing, we can move it, or we could also make it enlarged. So if you take the scale tool, with all those points selected, you grab the scale tool, you can, outside the box, you can click and drag it and scale those points out. Okay, so it's changing. You could scale it in, or you could scale it out, right? So if we pull those things out, suddenly we've changed this form and really manipulated it very, very subtly, but in a really interesting way. I'm going to pause for a second here.